from my voice, but I have never seen anything like it.
You believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm Andrew Zimmel, your host as always. It is that time of week again, ladies and gentlemen. We have Alexander Haynes to break down the hottest current events and political stuff. You get your Iowa and New Hampshire caucus breakdown. We talk about why Pete Buttigieg is in the lead, what can we expect from Bernie Sanders coming forward, and then Bloomberg versus Biden. Also, we talk about the coronavirus, how that virus is spread across the country and what we can expect in the next few weeks, and your 2-minute China update from Alexander, who's been on top of the stories over there forever. So it's really great. Here's Alexander. We'll jump right into it. Every time I talk to this guy, I feel smarter. Here he is. All right, on the phone line right now, our resident current events and political analyst, Alexander Haynes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, perfect. So let's talk about the Iowa caucus, because this really was, I had one person compare it today to a Democratic Watergate, is what he called it. I don't think it's that serious, but it was kind of a cluster. For the audience that doesn't know about what happened in Iowa, can you kind of fill us in?
Yeah, definitely. So the Iowa caucuses are they're different than any other primary because they're not voted on in a typical open primary. The format of a caucus, and it's actually caucuses instead of caucus, which is just another really bizarre thing about this, is you vote in kind of this closed format where you do have to be registered to the Democrat Party, and you poll different people, you poll different crowds, and you tally votes by hand, by paper. If after the first round of voting, if a certain candidate does not have enough to be quote unquote eligible anymore, you can then start to pull people towards different candidates. So for example, Andrew Yang, he did not have enough people to be eligible in the first round, so most people stayed with Yang, but there's one or two people who went to, I forget who, but they might have gone to Pete Buttigieg or Joe Biden, for example. So that's kind of how it works. And there's 2 or 3 rounds of voting in the Iowa caucuses. And then after this whole tallying of votes and seeing how many people align with each candidate in a vastly confusing system that I'll save from boring everybody and explaining, you get the delegates after that. And what ended up happening was the voting was delayed and the results were delayed. And nobody was getting results. Nobody was reporting results. There's many, many moments that we had caught live on air. For example, one CNN reporter was talking to a delegate who was trying to get results out, and you have to get the results from the Central Democrat DNC party chair to then spread to everybody else. So this person was live on air talking to CNN while the phone was ringing, and the phone was answered, and you could hear live on air the person from the DNC going hello, hello, and hung up, which it only delayed the process even more. So we didn't get the results for another day. It was a absolute mess.
Now, what else can we know, or what else do we know about the company? It was like Shadow Inc. that was Pete Buttigieg was a primary investor in. What more do we know about that?
Yeah, so unfortunately not a whole lot yet, but we will know more soon. I guarantee you that, just because of the connection to Pete Buttigieg with this company. And traditionally what has happened is the Iowa caucuses is, like I said, it's on paper tallying votes. And this year they decided to go with an app that was developed by this Shadow Inc. company, where you tallied the votes by app, and that's how you report it for each kind of county, for each different caucus, independent caucus within the giant caucuses. But not all the counties went with the app. Some went by paper, some went with app, and then the app ended up crashing a little bit of the way through, which delayed results, and they couldn't even get results because the app was no longer functioning. I've heard a couple people have described it as this was an app that was still in beta testing. This was an app that basically it looked like a very rudimentary prototype that should not have been functional in any way. There was maybe rushed testing of this app to get it out right away, so it maybe needed more testing, but to go ahead with the caucuses. They went ahead and pushed it out. So that's kind of what we know right now. But I'm sure as Pete Buttigieg continues to surge in polls, that he is going to, we will know more, because right now he is actually leading the delegate county. He has 22 to Bernie Sanders has 21. They are the two leaders right now.
So we go out of Iowa with Pete Buttigieg kind of being the leader in the race, right? Or am I getting that wrong?
No. That is what, yes. Pete Buttigieg is the leader right now with 22 delegates to Bernie Sanders' 21 delegates.
Now, it's really interesting to me because I don't think when this entire thing started that the mayor of South Bend, or the former mayor of South Bend, I should say, would be the person leading the Democratic Party. Does this feel kind of, if not out of place, out of the ordinary to you at all?
Yeah, it really does feel out of the ordinary, and it feels it's been a very surprising run for Pete Buttigieg. He got some major financial support when he first started this. Very well connected person. Obviously, if he's investing in an app that the DNC is using to run the Iowa caucuses, he's very well connected. And then he just kind of surged because he has this Midwestern appeal. He's a very, you might call him a neoliberal. He's a very, and he kind of takes the moderate stance, but he also knows how to. One of the things about Pete Buttigieg is if you watch him, he knows how to placate to what crowd he's talking to. So he'll say, if he's talking to a crowd, say in California, where it might be some more radical people, some more radical Democrats, he really knows how to say the radical things. But if he's talking to a Midwest town, he knows his audience there, and he knows and he knows how to speak moderate. He knows how to speak to the farmers and the union workers. He's a very good speaker who knows his base and who's spreading a lot of different messages right now.
So going into New Hampshire, and I know we don't want to touch on this too much, but coming into New Hampshire, what do we expect from these results moving forward through the rest of the country?
Yeah, so going into New Hampshire, it was a little bit, we didn't know what to expect. Reports were early in the day that Joe Biden was not doing well, and right now he's not doing well at all. And it's going to be very interesting to see if he even survives South Carolina and Nevada. I imagine he won't drop out, but right now he has 6 delegates, and he's in last right now, and he is dropping in polling like crazy as more Democrats kind of start to shade away from him and start to actually move to, surprisingly, Amy Klobuchar has gained a lot in polling. She's kind of this 11th hour dark horse candidate who's no longer a dark horse, but there are some questions about she really appealed to New Hampshire, and she got multiple key endorsements from newspapers and from key professors in New Hampshire at the last minute, and that's kind of why she has seen this sudden surge. So it's questionable if she sticks around, but right now she is taking away Biden's key base. Elizabeth Warren is also falling, and right now we're really seeing it's really coming down to Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, maybe Klobuchar. We'll have to see how she does with Nevada and South Carolina, which are really not her base, and also Michael Bloomberg, who has come out of nowhere to kind of be this a different version of Biden, former mayor of New York, very moderate, former Republican. Actually, he's flipped parties just to kind of get what he wants. Billionaire. He's very wealthy and has poured lots and lots of money into this campaign already.
So I know that we want to talk about Bloomberg coming into this race because he is the guy that, if you look at him, he feels like the Democratic version of Donald Trump almost, right?
He is. His rhetoric is not as drastic as Donald Trump's. He knows how to not say the wild and the insane things. And he is kind of the businessman like Donald Trump, but he's a lot more moderate, and he's a lot more even road. He's a little bit more. He kind of takes this very professional, very tries to kind of be. We all think of New York, the Wall Street as this very professional suit and tie crowd, and that's very much the persona that he gives off. So while he's a little bit like Trump, he's also kind of tries to be the exact opposite of Trump. But the key comparison there is he's a businessman and he has lots of money and he has more resources than any other candidate in this race right now.
So the Donald Trump that maybe a moderate Democrat or a moderate Republican might vote for.
Yes, and that's the thing that I think some of the DNC members who are a little bit more worried about the more radical Sanders or Warren side, they kind of see this and they don't believe in the Klobuchar or Pete Buttigieg lasting in the campaign. They see Michael Bloomberg as the replacement for Joe Biden, you might say. They see him as the moderate who can he's the man to beat Trump. That's kind of the appeal that he has.
So we already saw Andrew Yang drop out of the race, and I thought he kind of reminded me a lot of like a people's champion type candidate. We saw him drop out. Who can we expect next to drop out of this race?
It's going to be really hard to say who's going to be able to drop out, and we probably won't see anybody else drop out until after Super Tuesday. The only other person who may, if Klobuchar sinks Nevada and South Carolina, she may drop out, but she would have to do really bad because she is riding very high right now. And I see her campaign lasting into Super Tuesday. Joe Biden, if he sinks in South Carolina and Nevada, I see him possibly dropping out, but just with the popularity and being Joe Biden, he may not drop out. So I don't think we see anybody drop out until we have Super Tuesday sorted out.
Joe Biden has seemed like the guy that we thought was going to be the next Democratic candidate. But in the last 4 years, I think the entire party has shifted away from the establishment Democrats. And Biden kind of feels like the type of guy who is an establishment Democrat. At this point in the race, are you surprised how far back he is, that he isn't even mentioned with the Sanders and the Warrens and the Buttigieg and the Klobuchars?
I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm not surprised. So if you were to look at a lot of the polling, a lot of the early polling especially, Biden was leading by a lot. But if you actually talk to people, and that's the problem with polls, you got to actually talk to people. And if you kind of took the temperature of the room, took the temperature of the delegates and who is voting, Joe Biden was not that popular. He did not have the pull. He did not have I know this is very cliche, but it's also very true in Joe Biden's case. He did not generate the excitement that other candidates had. His gaffes and his errors when he's speaking and his records on different things and being part of the establishment, because President Obama really set the baseline for what the Democrat establishment was. And Joe Biden was right there on the front lines with Obama in setting that. So he is the picture of the establishment right now. And a lot of people wanted to move away from that. And so while the polling numbers, if you looked at that and might have been surprised to see Joe Biden lagging behind, if you talk to people, I'm not too surprised that he's doing so awful right now.
Do you want to make any predictions for the next two caucuses coming up?
It's going to be very hard to say. I think I can make two predictions. I think that Bernie Sanders is going to continue to surge in the next two primaries. There's a lot. He's the candidate that people are very excited about. And I think Pete Buttigieg, he also picks up a lot more, specifically in Nevada. I think Pete Buttigieg is going to do very, very well in Nevada.
Let's talk about the coronavirus, which got a new name recently, and it has now, I think, reached the United States and had more of an impact than I think a lot of people, moderate people like you and myself, considered it to have. What is the update right now on the virus?
Yeah, so I'll start out with the just absolutely awful news. There were 14,000 plus new cases in China today, and nobody wants to hear that. However, the reason for that is the figures in China, they moved a lot of the people that were probable or suspected, just because of the way that they define stats and the way that they have been testing people, over to the confirmed category. So basically, it was this mass movement of people that they think have it. They're just going to start counting them as confirmed people. So that's why we saw 14,000 plus people today, this evening, tomorrow morning. It's already morning in China when we're recording this. That's why we saw the mass surge today. Now, there are 13 cases in the U.S., but it's a lot worse than we thought it was going to be. That much is true. One of the very concerning things is the cruise ship that is docked off of Japan right now there are 175 confirmed cases on that ship, and I believe they're still testing people. There's 3,700 total people aboard that cruiser. 175 confirmed cases. I don't know how many they've tested right now, but I know they still have more to confirm. And that's kind of like a floating lab that can show you how viral this disease is. Now, a couple of new studies have come out, and we've been able to, the mortality rate is still relatively low, which is very good news that people are able to recover. Granted, the recovery is about a 20-day period. And just a little bit more bad news, the incubation period, the highest reported time is up to 24 days. However, the median has now dropped to, there's 2 studies that recently came out, and the median for incubation is now about 3.5 to 5.5 days.
It's incredible, Alexander. Now, what else do we need to know about this virus? And I know we talked about it 2 weeks ago when we were saying that we didn't think it would have a big impact in the United States. Besides washing your hands, there has to be something else, another way for ourselves, like people to protect themselves from this virus, right?
I wish I could say that there was, and that's one of the problems. Is just right now the best way to protect yourself from this virus is good hygiene and just wear a mask if you're sick. Because and there is a little bit of debate there too, is if masks can even protect you. I know it does help protect you from spreading the disease. Stay home if you're sick. Good hygiene right now is the best way. There's no vaccine. There's no cure for this. There's no magic trick. Just stay healthy in any other way that you would stay healthy, and you should be okay. Now, go ahead.
I was going to say what's really tough right now is that there's going to be the overlap between people that get the normal everyday flu and the people that get this coronavirus or think that they might have this coronavirus.
Yeah, and that's a little bit more of the bad news today, is that right now we were doing very well in the United States, where there were down to 68 pending cases left, and that was down from when I last talked to you. There's over 200 pending cases in the United States, and then it went down to 100 some a week later, and now it's down to 68, and there are only 14 confirmed cases in the United States. Unfortunately, the CDC reported this evening that some of the test kits they have are faulty, and some of the test kits being shipped to third world countries and countries around the world are faulty. So the CDC is now going to have about a week to 2 to start sending out new test kits to these countries, which may mean somebody who was recently turned up negative, because you can be asymptomatic and transfer the disease, and with an incubation period of 24 days, there's a lot of people that you talk to in almost a month-long time. Again, though, just for anybody concerned, remember that the median is 3.5 to 5.5 days incubation, but it can go up to 24 days. But the faulty test kit thing is very, very concerning for where this is how fast this is going to spread. Now, we are to that first date that I talked about last time, Valentine's Day, February 14th. That we're going to see. That's the date that we may see it explode in the United States, and we have not seen that because there have been quarantines. The CDC has done a very good job at identifying people who may have it, who have been in contact, and really controlling how fast it is spread. However, the next day, because people are starting to go back to work, there's a little bit more freedom of movement, opportunity to move about. Nobody really is going to mainland China or coming from mainland China. It's in lockdown right now, but the next day, because of the incubation period, we can say about March 5th is the next day to watch for in the United States to see if there's a spark in cases. That could be a very dangerous point.
Before I let you go, Alexander, do you have a China update for us?
Yeah, so right now, China's not doing well right now. A lot of the locations, the businesses are still shut down, even though the government says that they're opening again. The country is more or less on lockdown. Wuhan is getting, and that's the Hubei province, is just getting hit. It's going to be a very long time before they recover. It's going to be very interesting to see how they recover from this. There's 1,368 total deaths. Of those, 1,310 are in the Hubei province. So only 58 deaths worldwide are outside of Hubei, which is the epicenter of this virus. A lot of people have been comparing the treatment to it as like how Russia treated Chernobyl, where they did not act as promptly as they should have. And there is evidence of that. And actually, one of the doctors who first released the news about how deadly and how not deadly, but how infectious the disease, the coronavirus could be, Dr. Lee, he passed away. He actually contracted the virus and he passed away later last week. And there is a social media trend on WeChat in China sparked with people asking for freedom, hashtag I want freedom, of course in Mandarin though. And so this caught storm in Chinese social media about 12 o'clock at night. It's then censored, but another hashtag, just a slightly, we want freedom of speech, started after that and lasted till about 3 a.m. before that too was censored. And so there is a little bit, there's going to be a very interesting twist after we all recover from this, hopefully very soon. What does China do with their government? How do those people start viewing their government that have so strictly censored them and, in their eyes, have really hurt them in being able to respond and being able to treat this disease? That's going to be a long-term story to watch from this, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see how China reacts, how the people of China react, and really how the world reacts to China's government.
Alexander, every time I talk to you, I learn something new. Thank you so much for coming on with us.
Hey, thank you very much. I really enjoy it.
All right. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Thank you for all the positive feedback we continue to get every time Alexander comes on. Every time he comes on, you guys tell me how great he sounds, and trust me, that is excellent to hear because I think he sounds really great too, so I'm glad we're all in agreement. A lot of good content coming out your way. Today, we do a little bit of NBA talk. That's going to be out tomorrow. Film Friday. We have Valentine's Day special with my buddy. You're going to like that. A couple other things in the works, too. Next week, a lot of big stuff. Breaking news out of the NBA already. So, ton of stuff. And then, of course, next week we're going to be doing Major League Baseball. We're going to be breaking down those games, those teams, too. So, thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.